Welcome to the Greater Baltimore Church of Christ. We're the Harding family, and we send greetings from Anne Arundel County region.
Hi, I'm Melinda Bishop.
And I'm Merrick Evans. We're from Owings Mills, and we're part of the Singles Ministry.
Welcome to the Greater Baltimore Church.
Good morning. My name is Lauren Westbrook, and I send you lots of love and greetings from Baltimore City.
Back into Zion, from their freedom came a scheme, while the city lay in ruins. We believe they had a dream.
When our souls
were like the deserts, and we stumbled on the stream,
and found
revival in the water. We became like men who dream.
And yes, our mouths
were filled with laughter,
and our songs rushed
like a stream.
where he washed
our sorrows under. We
became
like
men who dream. Let me hear you sing it, church.
It shall be said among the nations,
There's a God
who shares our dream. The Spirit moves our generation.
Shed your tears,
Shed your tears,
and fill the stream. We are the
Brothers and sisters,
men
we're the dreamers.
We are
Shedding the tears that flood the thirsty waters. Brothers and sisters, we're the dreamers. Planting the seeds of many. Brothers and sisters, we are planting the seeds of men who dream.
God has done
Great things among us. Every eye
now
shines a gleam.
A spark of light
Reveals the wonder. We became
like men who dream.
It shall be said among the nations,
There's a God
there's
who
a
shares
God
our
who
dreams.
shares our dream. The Spirit moves our generation.
Shed your tears,
Shed your
and
tears,
fill the stream. Oh, we are the
Brothers and
men who
sisters, we're the
dream.
Good morning, everybody. It's so great to be with all of you today. You know, we serve an amazing God. In spite of everything that we go through, God is still good. And so right now, we want to take an opportunity just to give him glory and honor. So feel free to sing with us if you will. All the glory belongs to you. All the glory belongs to you, oh God. All the glory belongs to you. All the glory belongs to you, oh God. All the glory belongs to you. All the glory belongs to you, oh God. All the glory belongs to you. All the glory belongs to you, oh God. All the glory belongs. All the glory belongs to you. All the glory belongs to you, oh God. Yeah, yeah. Sing all the glory belongs. All the glory belongs to you. All the glory belongs to you, oh God. Sing all the glory belongs to you, oh God. All the glory belongs to you, oh God. All the glory belongs to you, oh God. All the glory belongs, all the glory belongs to you. All the glory belongs to you, All the glory belongs to you, oh God. So we say hallelujah. Say all the glory belongs to you, oh God. All the glory belongs to you, oh God. All the glory belongs to you, oh God. Lift it up, all the glory belongs. All the glory belongs to you, All the glory belongs to you, oh God. Yeah, yeah. So we say hallelujah. Say Jesus and his words, sing until the earth has heard. Lord, we sing your praises loud, sing unto the stumbling crowd, sing of Jesus and his words, sing until the earth has heard. So we say hallelujah, say hallelujah, say we the servants, he the king. All his power, all his life. Living in the church is why. God's why we live and sing. We the servants, he the king. All his power, all his life. Living in the church is why. So we say hallelujah. Say we are made of naught but clay. Till we change on that great day. Life is but a passing glance. Seeking while you have the chance. We are made of naught but clay. Till we change on that great day. Till we say hallelujah. Say hallelujah. Say hallelujah. All the glory belongs to you, oh God. All the glory belongs. All the glory belongs to you. All the glory belongs to you, oh God. 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 Yeah. All the glory belongs. All the glory belongs to you. All the glory belongs to you, oh God.
Last night we had our talk because I didn't know what the weather was going to be like. I thought we were going to get in and get out. So I shared with him that you know, at his age, he's been through a lot. And I don't know if I could have been standing here like he is right now if I was in his shoes. Thanks, Mom.
She was there for a lot of difficult times. I could talk to her about just about anything. She never left my side, no matter how mad, no matter how angry we both got at each other. She always forgave me the next day and turned the other cheek, no matter how bad it got. She gave me so many answers.
Well, Kenny, I have a couple questions for you. Did you believe that Christ died and rose again on the third day for your sins? What is your good confession?
Jesus is Lord.
Amen.
Hello, my name is April and I am the chapter director for Hope Worldwide Baltimore. And I just wanted to give a quick update about Hope. I'd like to thank everyone who made cards for the staff and patients at Johns Hopkins Hospital. The information for making those cards are still up on the website, so please keep the cards coming. I'd love to give a big shout out to Judy Deathridge for making beautiful handmade cards for our friends over at NM Carroll and Pleasant View, letting them know that we miss them and that our thoughts and prayers are with them. I'm sure all of you are doing your best to help out wherever you can, but here's a short list of things that we can do also. The Red Cross is in need of blood donations. If you are healthy and able, please go to their website, make an appointment, and donate. Under Armour started a project to provide hospital workers with no-sew face mask. That's no-sew. So if you can't sew, you can do this. Hope Worldwide is excited to partner with Katrina Brooks and Heart Smiles to provide online workshops and tutoring. Tutors can be high school students, college students, retirees, anyone who has a heart to serve the youth of this city, and it's especially needed at this time with the COVID-19 shutdown. So go to the Hope Worldwide Baltimore website to get further information and details concerning these activities. In the meanwhile, stay safe and continue to check on one another.
Hello, my brothers and sisters from the Baltimore church. We miss seeing you. We are hoping to see you at the Orlando conference but a lot of things have happened. In India, it's a complete lockdown. So I just want to update you about how things are in India and in Bangalore and how the disciples are doing. So just want to thank all of you for sending Barnabas and Bertha. We had such a great time. And thank you, Scott and Dion, for just your continuous support and encouragement. And the whole church, you've been so loving and caring whenever Caroline and me visited there. And also thank you for just the way that you have generously supported the work in India all these years. And we are very grateful for all that you do. So India is under complete lockdown. We are not allowed to go out of the homes. There are police outside not allowing people to drive around, or so even if you have to buy groceries, you have to walk down to a closest grocery shop. And so they're very, very strict. And that way, because of that, the number of cases of the virus spreading is reduced. And so also in India, we don't know because we don't have enough kits to even diagnose people with the issues. But the government is trying to keep people indoors, and that's how they're trying to control the spread of the virus. So all the disciples have been safe so far by the grace of God. So we have already completed 30 days lockdown. And so with that comes a lot of challenges. And so some of the disciples who are daily wage earners have been having a very hard time because they depend on the daily wage. They work as carpenters or masons or painters and jobs like that. And they have completely at home, so they can't go anywhere to find jobs. So they're really hurting. And so as churches, we have rallied behind the needs of the disciples in all over India. Right now, we have close to 7,000 disciples in South Asia, and in India itself, around 6,350 disciples. So we have helped close to 800 people so far. And what we have done is we have given them $20 and going up to $40 to each families, so they can buy provisions, groceries, basically rice and wheat flour and oil and sugar and some tea powder and some spices and salt. This is just the basic food packet we're given each families, and this would last for 10 to 15 days, depending on the size of the family. And so this is what we are trying to do immediately, and we have helped close to 800 plus disciples all over India. But now, as when I'm talking, every day the needs are increasing because this month many people have not got their salaries. They assume they're going to get their salary, but their boss told them, sorry, we can't give you because you didn't come to work, so we don't have money to pay you. And so disciples are worried about rents. They have to pay rent. There are other medical needs. They have to pay school fees. So month of June is when they start school. And so the families are worried, how can we support and how can we get support to take care of our family needs. So we are trying to see what we can do within our own church to raise funds and to support these disciples. So what we've done is, so the money we would have spent on halls and other regular church activities, we're keeping it aside to give for benevolence. But the need is just increasing day by day. And so we need to help people. We don't want to see anybody go hungry or be out of their homes. And so that's the biggest concern right now. Bangalore alone has 1,400 plus disciples. So there are a lot of people who are expressing a need for church to come forward to help. The government is offering help, but here there's a lot of bureaucracy. So some of people are not getting the benefit. Even the government is saying we're going to give you this and give you that. So they have not really gotten the support yet from the government agencies. So thank you for your prayers. We need your prayers. just like we are praying for you in United States. I know the pandemic has hit you so hard, and so many people are suffering there, and our heart goes out to all of the people there who are suffering, and so many people are in bad shape, and so many people have died. The heart goes out to all of you in your country, and our prayers are with you. Please keep us in your prayers, and thank you for supporting us and helping us, and through so many ways, by just your love and encouragement, and by your financial support as well. So very grateful. So love you, and we pray, God willing, we can meet again, just to come personally to say hi to you, and pray that you'll send another team of disciples when all this ends. So God bless. Love you.
Do not think that I've come to abolish the law of the prophets. I've not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything has been accomplished. Therefore, if anyone sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly, he will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. Today's message is called The Fulfillment. And if you've been with us over the last few weeks, you know we've been talking about the Sermon on the Mount. And what an amazing opportunity it's been for us to learn what it means to be citizens in God's kingdom. We've been studying out the sermon, and this encapsulates chapters 5, 6, and 7, all of it redefining the turning of the Jewish standard of worship on its head. It outlines what it means to be citizens in God's kingdom. You know, the Bible talks about it in chapters 5, 6, and 7. It begins to reinterpret for us the ideas of what it means to really follow Christ. For instance, in the very beginning, it starts with what it really means to be blessed. And blessed is not allowing our joy to be determined by outside circumstances, but we have an inward joy, or what it means to be meek, and what it means to be humble, or what it means to be righteous, and really have the character of a Christian. Nowhere is this point made even clearer than in the statement that Jesus makes in verse 17, fulfilling the law. That's why he's come, to make complete, to make clear. Verses 17 through 20 says, not only is it a clear description of what Jesus is doing, but why he's doing it. He's come so that he can make clear that we interpret the law in the way that it's been meant to be interpreted. That's what's happening for the Orthodox Jew that he's speaking to at this point. So Jesus is doing this again so we can know what and why. The strict Orthodox Jew in the time of Jesus, religion serving God, was a matter of keeping regulation and restrictions and legalistic practices. This adherence to the law created a kind of duplicity, where they were pious on the outside, but there was not a real righteousness on the inside. It didn't really help them to grow in reverence and righteousness in the heart of Christ and compassion for others. And so they lacked that. Jesus condemned this type of behavior in Matthew 23. He said this was a type of cleaning the outside of the cup, but the inside of the cup was full of decay. And we can see that scripture right up there. Jesus came to give an accurate and more complete interpretation of how the law was supposed to be lived out. So Jesus is really trying to help the Jewish audience understand what it means not to live in legalistic righteousness, but to live out the Holy Bible from the heart and have that spirit. And I don't know where you are today, but so many times we can be affected by all the things and circumstances going on around us. And it's one thing to know what to do, it's another thing to know how to live it out. And so that's what Jesus is trying to communicate. And so just 3 points for us today as we talk about the fulfillment. That's the title of the message. 3 small points. 1, we need to have reliance, we need to reorient, and we need to be resilient. We need to have reliance, reorient, and be resilient. You've seen the hypocrisy of the religious world. You've been surrounded with a so-called righteousness, a legalistic obedience where people kind of go through the motions of things, but they're really not living things out in the heart. People can attend church regularly, go through the motions of Christianity. We can do all these things, be a good person. They can seem to know the laws of the book, but their lives don't match the words that are written. And so many times we see that type of example, and it really affects the way that we are able to live out Christianity in the way that God has called us to. We could be parents that are so many times telling our kids what to do, but we ourselves aren't living in humility. We know the righteous things that they should do. They know the righteous things that we should do. But the greatest model that our children have is the way that we live out the Bible every single day. And this may be something you've seen, or it may be a way that you're living today. Maybe this is you. There's been such a reliance on things, such a reliance on stuff, such a reliance on conformity and the way that we do things. Church has been done a certain way for a long, long time. Now that's been upended. That's been changed. That's been turned on its head. And all of a sudden, we have to find our comfort not in the way that we did things, but we have to find our comfort in Jesus Christ. I think God is doing something amazing where He's calling us back not to rely on conformity or tradition or symbolism or ritualism or all these different things, but to rely on Him. We need reliance on God this morning. Now, all has been upended like we've talked about, and no longer can we base our faith on how we did things. Our trust has to be based on our reliance on God. Point number 2, we have to reorient. Reorient is to change directions, is to focus, refocus again, to move from going through just the meandering through the motions of Christianity, but really understanding once again, aligning ourselves with how Christ would want us to live. We have to reorient. We have to take a second to look at what the scriptures are teaching and then look at how we understand them and look at how Jesus wants us to see them. The next few chapters are really that. As we get into chapter 6 and chapter 7, Jesus is taking a moment from this pivotal point of suggesting that He's the fulfillment, of saying, look, you've seen the scriptures one way, you've practiced the scriptures another way, and I want to show you how they're really supposed to be lived out. He begins to get into murder and love and loving our enemies and adultery and saying, you've seen these things this way, and prayer and almsgiving and fasting, but here's the way that we're supposed to see them. Jesus wants us to reorient. He wants to make sure that we align ourselves totally with His heart, not just the motions of Christianity. How are you doing with that this morning? How are you doing with really aligning yourself with the way that God wants us to live? Again, church upended, we're all online, we're doing things a different way, but the principles of worship do not change. The way that we're supposed to celebrate God does not change. The method may change, but the heart of it doesn't change. And Jesus wants us to reorient and realign the way that we worship in concert with the way that He desires for us to worship. I'm reminded of a story a long time ago that I was told of two people that began to argue about what the best translation of the Bible was. And one said, it's the King James Version. It's the best translation ever been written. Another guy, he was a little younger, said, I like the NASB. I love the New American Standard Version. And 3 other people began to chime in. I like the NIV. I love the ESV. And there became an argument. And one old man stood in. He stood in the gap and said, the version I liked? I like the one that my mother lived. I don't know what version of life or the Bible that you're interpreting for your own life, but the one that means the most is the one that we live in concert with the scriptures. Not what we read, not what we say, not just what we believe, but our lives matching and working in concert, being reoriented, being repentant, being aligned with how God has called us to live. And lastly, we need to be resilient. We need to make sure that we are reliant on God. We need to make sure that we reorient our lives and align ourselves with His message and be fulfilled in that way. But we also need to make sure, that we are resilient. You say, what does this have to do with anything? Well, God is calling us in our resilience to continue to be diligent in searching out His Word and making sure our lives match the truth and not our truth. Often when we go through struggle, we want to realign things in the way of realign the Bible to match our lives rather than realign our lives to match the way the Bible teaches. And one of the things that He says in verse 20 is, I tell you the truth, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. How is it possible? How is it possible today that we can have a righteousness that surpasses these religious leaders who celebrated and seem to love God all day long? How is it possible that a people that seem to practice out their faith in the way they did with such commitment and devotion, that our righteousness can surpass those? Well, the religion of the Pharisees was one that consisted of a righteousness of externals, of ceremonial washings, of ceremonial formalities and liturgies and legalism. And Jesus says you can have a faith that surpasses that. It's not a faith based on stuff. It's a faith based in the heart. First, flatly, he denounced such a concept and indicated no one could be saved by such a state. No one could be saved by just practicing religion without being transformed and changing. True discipleship for us is not just going through the motions. It's not just saying that we love. It's having real compassion that acts on that love and is manifested in what we do, not just what we say. The Pharisees and religious leaders of the day had practiced this type of ritualism for years. And here was Jesus upending it all, turning it on its head and saying, I'm not here to abolish the law, but I am here to show you how the law is to be lived out. The law in us today to be lived out is that we need to be a people that are putting these things into practice. What does that look like for you? It's not enough just to read the scriptures when God is calling us to give or to love or to sacrifice or to be righteous. We can't just read that and say that's a good idea. We have to read it and learn how to live it. And as we begin to bring the message to a close, I want to give us a challenge and a charge. As we think about relying on God, reorienting ourselves, making sure that we're aligned with His message, and being resilient. As we think about being resilient, it really has to do with us looking at our lives and asking, are we fulfilling the purpose of Jesus in our own lives? And I think how we do that, how we can be a people that fulfill God's purpose in our own lives, is that we have to understand that what Jesus is doing with the teachers of the law is He's giving them a correct perspective from which they should see God's word and live it. And so for us to fulfill God's purpose, we have to accept that perspective and then put it into practice in our own lives. And so again, this can be a difficult task, but what it means is our perspective on how we see death, our perspective on how we interact with the living, our perspective on how we serve, our perspective with blessings and sickness, illness and tragedy, all of it needs to coincide with how Jesus has interpreted that we should live that out. That is challenging because we are facing illness. We are facing sickness. We are facing despair. And some of us have even faced loss. And with all that, our perspective, the lens of which we see those things, has to be the way that Jesus sees them. That's what it means for us to be resilient and to reorient and to be God reliant. I want to challenge you today, if that's not the way you've looked at things, the good news is that you can. You can see things exactly the way Jesus wants you to see them. And you may need some help, and so we're here for you. We want to provide resources for you. We want to make sure that you're taken care of, that your needs are served. And so you can contact us if you need some help with your journey in discovering how to really walk with God in this way. The fulfillment of Christ in His Word is made very clear through this passage. But the fulfillment of your life and His Word is not so clear yet, and only will be when we decide to live the way that Christ wants us to live. To God be the glory. Amen.
Good morning, church. My name is Chris Glasgow, and thank you so much for joining us today. We've had an amazing service, but before you go, I have a few announcements for you. This Wednesday is going to be an all-women's midweek. Please be checking your email for the Zoom call information. Today is also the last Sunday of April. That means today is the International Day of Giving. This is a time where we give our special missions to help areas in Baltimore, but also around the world. You can also remember to text to give for your weekly contribution. We are teaming up with Hope Worldwide to bring hope and a smile to those who have been impacted by COVID-19. We are asking the church to write uplifting cards to those impacted. Please visit greaterbaltimorechurch.org for more information. And lastly, I have a few prayer requests that I would like you all to be praying for during this upcoming week. We want to lift up Siobhan Montgomery, who lost her mom. We also want to lift up Antonio Douglas, who lost his sister. And lastly, we also want to continue to pray for Leon Bridges, who lost his wife, LaWanda. You know, during this time, there's so much sorrow, there's so much negative in the world. But in Ephesians 3:20, God says and he promises that he's capable of more than what we can ask or imagine. And we're about to sing a song that is talking about that God has the whole world in his hands. So as we're singing that, remember that God is in control and he can do so much more than we can even imagine.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands.
The corona, Ebola, H1N1 cancer. Jesus is the answer, but he's healing so much more than these. My God, your God, our God can heal our soul's disease. Don't just wash your hands, let him wash your heart. Won't you let him in? He's loved you from the start. God is bigger than this stupid virus. He's holding everything. He is not even tired. World in his hands, he's got the whole world. In his hands, he's got the whole world. In his hands, he's got the whole world in his hands.